It starts with a deadline, a blank screen, and a sudden, inexplicable sense of possession. You sat down to write a report, but now you're convinced the spice rack needs to be alphabetized immediately. You tell yourself you'll start in 5 minutes, but 3 hours vanish like a time skip. In that gap, you've learned how penguins propose with rocks and cleaned the microwave twice. There is a specific, heavy label we use for this behavior. We look at the unfinished tasks and the wasted hours and call it laziness. This behavior suggests a system powering down, but your brain is actually working at full capacity to orchestrate an escape. If your brain is using this much energy to avoid a task, we have to look closer at what it's actually running away from. Neurologically, your brain views the emotional discomfort attached to a task as a genuine threat. It reacts to a spreadsheet the same way it reacts to a physical predator. This alarm triggers when a project feels too big, uncertain, or carries the risk of failure. Your brain senses the potential for inadequacy and decides to stay safe by doing anything else. This survival instinct creates a self-sustaining structure called the avoidance loop. Step 1 is the detour. When you look at the task and feel that spike of anxiety, your brain routes you toward a distraction. This provides an immediate drop in stress. But while you're scrolling or cleaning, the clock keeps ticking. The original task becomes mathematically harder to finish in the remaining time, causing the pressure to expand. That extra weight makes the task feel even more threatening, which triggers a stronger urge to escape. You lock into a cycle where avoidance creates the very stress you're trying to outrun. Procrastination is a struggle with emotional regulation. It persists because the brain is prioritizing short-term relief over long-term goals. Standard productivity advice often struggles to break this cycle because it targets the symptoms of the behavior rather than the neurological cause. Using sheer discipline to push through relies on willpower, which is a finite biological resource. Your brain eventually files a formal complaint and returns to its protective avoidance habits. Motivation provides a temporary spike in energy, but rarely survives the first moment of actual difficulty. Once the initial high wears off, the underlying fear of the task remains where it was. Even perfect planning can be a trap. Spending hours color-coding a calendar or researching the best apps often serves as a socially acceptable way to feel productive without actually facing the work. You cannot outthink a survival response with superficial hacks. As long as the task feels emotionally threatening, your brain will choose escape every time. Stopping the loop requires a shift in how you manage environmental friction to bypass the brain's internal alarm system. Lower resistance by making the first action impossibly small. A task too easy to fail won't trigger the defense mechanism. Further reduce emotional weight by starting badly. A messy draft neutralizes the fear of failure, providing a foundation you can actually improve. The next step is to flip the friction equation. You want to make the work easier to start than the distraction. This means physically hiding your phone, closing unnecessary browser tabs, and making distractions annoying to reach. When escaping requires more physical effort than simply starting the work, your brain will reluctantly choose the path of least resistance, the task itself. This strategy challenges the idea that you must wait to feel ready before you begin. Behavioral evidence shows that action precedes motivation. The sense of momentum you're waiting for is a byproduct of doing the work, not a prerequisite for it. What we call laziness is actually a brain overwhelmed by its protective mechanism. It's trying to keep you safe from the discomfort of failure. Understanding this allows you to stop fighting against your own biology. When you work with your brain's logic instead of against it, even the most intimidating tasks start to feel possible.